So I would like to introduce everybody to John Coombs. John is the co-founder and CEO of Rover. Rover helps sports teams create engaging mobile campaigns and branded fan experiences. So it powers mobile fan experiences for more than 100 teams and leagues around the world, including NHL, NFL, CFL, all kinds of different great teams. And so, John, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you. Good to join everybody.
Super. I will let you take over control of the screen. And while this is happening, if anybody has any questions for John or wants to add into the chat, we'll be monitoring the chat for John and he'll be able to answer your questions as he goes. So over to you, John.
Perfect. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I know we're in a few different time zones. Well, again, thanks for taking the time today, guys. I will be being efficient with everybody's time and talk to you a little bit about what we're doing with Rover. And I think the session we just had on email marketing, a lot of those themes very much hold true for, I think, how we're really starting to look at the world of the mobile app and the role it plays, specifically around deliverability of push messaging, keeping your fans engaged, using relevance, customization, and some other tactics to make sure that this prize real estate, the app, your club app or your team app on a fan's phone, is opened, is engaged with, and really at the end of the day achieves the desired results that you're really looking for with some of your marketing initiatives. So, like mentioned, I'll give you like a high-level background. Rover's been working in sports for almost 8 years now, and really what we are and what we do is provide an add-on to the existing app ecosystem. So we don't build apps; we integrate with all the major app providers, certainly in North America and increasingly globally. So your Yins, Cams, and your Venue Nexts, and your FanReach and things like that. So what we do is provide a component of the app that really focuses on push and content. So thinking really about how do we target campaigns, how do we target our messaging to achieve various goals, whether they be ticket sales, whether they be sponsorship or brand integration, or fan engagement type pieces. And so, like was mentioned in the introduction, we really kind of tie two things together. Integration of data sources. So I'll get into this in a little bit, but Rover's really looking to make it easy for you to kind of connect the component parts that help you understand the preferences of the fan, and then tie that to rich content, to campaigns that are more than just the copy or the text often associated with a push. So I really want to start this off by kind of framing up the opportunity and then looking at some of the challenges and really some of the use cases that deliver value. And I think the first thing obviously that comes to mind when we look at the current reality of the state of the world as it relates to COVID is something we probably all understand is this really increased role and increased focus on the role of digital for sports marketing. When we lack physical inventory and we lack fans in our stadiums, obviously a lot falls on digital, which puts obviously challenge on folks like yourselves and for us in the space of sports marketing. But it also creates a lot of opportunity. It means that now these digital assets are of increased importance, and it's really an opportunity to deliver to the fullest on this channel. Obviously, digital has a number of component parts, and specifically today, we're going to be a little bit more focused in on the club app. The app does present a number of unique opportunities for us as sports marketers to create a differentiated experience. Obviously, as the voice of the team, we have access to information and we have certain creative assets and exposure to behind the scenes where while we might in some respects be competing with some of the third-party large sports app brands and platforms out there, we still have this direct line and this direct voice of the club that we can activate on and we can engage on with a fan. And also technically, the app itself presents a very unique opportunity. Firstly, it's a very data-rich environment. Through certain permission levels, we can really understand, just by having an app installed, a lot more about the fan. And the data-rich piece is obviously important from a sort of a CRM and an understanding perspective, but equally as important, it really allows us to be more targeted and be more segmented with our communications. And again, similar to the comments made about email earlier, that's going to improve open rates, and that's going to improve relevance and engagement. It really opens the door for a more personalized experience for the fan. And that's really kind of what we try and strive towards when we think about, not just having that app and checking the box that it exists, but how do we start to take it to the next level, leverage the data richness that exists in that ecosystem and deliver on that. Oftentimes through things like ticketing or other single sign-on that happens in a club app, we actually have an identifiable property of who that user is, whether that be an email or some identifier. And again, it allows us to really activate and target how we communicate to fans. I think, when we think about the challenge, though, while the app does present a lot of unique opportunities, it certainly has a number of challenges. And one of those is that when you look at sort of the architecture or tech stack of any sports team, as I'm sure you are all well aware, data lives in many different systems. On one hand, we have Arctics and Ticketmaster and or our other ticket provider. We might be using something like a core or another kind of CRM solution or data warehousing solution. We've got disparate data sources, and so it becomes sometimes pretty difficult to bring these together in a concise way and activate on them. The other challenge is that often the app is traditionally viewed as a sort of rigid and an expensive thing to adapt. The traditional model for changing your app is to get Android and iOS developers to develop something and to build you something. And that often is quite expensive when you're talking about, the fact that sports is ever changing week in, week out, and we want to have, this relevant mobile experience, but we're faced with this reality that we can only, code and engineer so much so quickly. And also, there's this challenge that the large app providers, these sort of third parties like your Score app, ESPN, Barstool Sports, etc., they have very large product teams and data scientists and data analysts and a really, large and robust team around them, which means that when you as a sports marketer or in the world of sports digital, you only have so much resources at the disposal. And you got a game tonight and another one tomorrow, bandwidth becomes an issue. So really what we seek to do is simplify a lot of that, make the sort of complexity of these disparate data sources and the challenge associated with the often engineering heavy reality of the app ecosystem a lot more simple and easier to execute on. And we do that by taking a platform approach. An approach that means it's sort of a no-code or a developer-less solution. Often, things you might be similar to with email marketing. You don't always need engineers and people to code things in order to execute on that. So I'll show you what that means in terms of the product. I won't go crazy deep into demoing and things, but we'll show you a few highlights of how we approach it and really sort of unlock the potential here within the app ecosystem. When we look at the product, there's really two component parts to it, if we sort of simplify it. Two pillars, if you will, of the Rover product. The first is in the world of marketing automation in the mobile app ecosystem, things you are all very familiar with, allowing or enabling segmentation and push messaging, things like that. This is really where the sort of simplification of the segmentation and the disparate data sources is solved for. We have integrations with the app providers that tell us about fan preferences, the types of messaging they'd like to see. We have integrations with the ticketing providers, so seamlessly having your Ticketmaster or Arctics data flow into Rover and automatically build segments around who's my season ticket holder, who has a ticket to today's game. And of course, most recently, as relevant to this conversation, our integration with Eloqua, allowing your emails to also be in sync with the push messaging you might send out. Obviously, the app is one channel of many, and we want to make sure that when we're email marketing, we're also recognizing, as was mentioned, that maybe the app is a better place to speak to this fan, or maybe they want to be spoken to on both channels, but each marketing automation solution should know that and be in sync. And that's really where the first pillar of the product comes into play. And the second pillar of the product, which I'll show you, it's highly visual, is a recognition that our marketing strategy, like is the case for web or for email, it's not just about the copy of the push. It's really about what are we driving the user to, and what does that experience that's associated with that message look like. And that's another big part of what we do, and I'll get into a little bit more deeply. Just kind of touching on the automation side, there's a number of sort of products within the Rover suite. I did just want to highlight this one as it relates to segmentation. So having your data flow from component sources into one place to then build audiences that are relevant for your communication strategy. Obviously, season ticket holder, user location, device language, and other user preferences are really relevant here when we think about being a bit more personalized and relevant with our segmentation strategy. And then, of course, translating that into the types of messaging and communications we want to deliver. Sometimes this is about automation through API integration, or sometimes it's about scheduling. But at the end of the day, we want to tie that segmentation data and bringing that together to the type of push or the type of messaging we want to deliver. And then, of course, have a richer experience beyond the copy of the copy associated with push. So we often talk about going beyond the push, this recognition that our messaging strategy isn't just the text in that notification, and we use the language of experiences. Experiences are fully native campaigns. So for those more sort of technically minded, what that means is we're not actually delivering a web view in an app. The end experience that is delivered to the user is fully native. It renders in the app as though it was coded by a developer, but without that developer requirement. So an experience can be something like this Lexus sponsored trivia. It can be editorial content, it can be ticketing or marketing messaging. At the end of the day, our app is now going more than just push copy. It's saying, hey, tickets go on sale tomorrow, and then it's providing a sort of rich visual complement to that. And the benefit is that it's doing that without you having to invest a lot of dollars or time in the engineering side of making this a reality in the app. So to bring that, kind of wrap that up, we can look at this design or this experience as part of the product as almost like a Photoshop or a Adobe XD, a Sketch, a design tool for app-rich content and marketing campaigns. So like you see in this video, I can log into my Rover account. I can marry the segmentation and the push and sort of that data strategy with a rich campaign through a drag and drop interface that allows me to turn the sort of the marketing copy into a visual mobile experience. I can add images and text and video and call to action buttons, and basically build out this rich campaign, publish that, and then under those sort of parameters of segmentation I've set, have that campaign go live in the club app, in the team app right away. I don't have to get people to update my app or get developers to build anything. That campaign just goes live under the sort of parameters that I've set. to think about the value of this, obviously, I'm sure you can kind of see different ways in which this might be leveraged. But a few things that definitely stand out, especially as we look towards the make good world of sponsorship and how do we incorporate brands in our mobile strategy. Using this tool to create branded content has become a big theme, especially of late, when we have partners and sponsors that need sort of integration into fan experiences. So a large part of what we're doing these days is to create these experiences that have a brand presence. Every experience that is sent to a user has pretty robust tracking and data and engagement metrics. So not only can I see sort of the impressions and the usage, but how a user responds, how they interact with an experience. It can really feed back into that loop of understanding who our fan is and what their preference is, and then be used for the segmentation strategy going forward. So I can, I'm going to take a little breath there as I've kind of gone into the sort of the product side, but I wanted to very quickly move into what does this actually mean? What does this look like? And so I'm going to show some examples of what an experience might mean for a club in terms of turning sort of what was traditionally just a push message into one of these richer experiences. So, we often start with sort of game day or, the idea of how do I sort of, first engage on the day of a game. One of the common use cases for the product is to create a game preview or a game guide. Like you see here, this is an example of something the Falcons do. It's sort of maybe sent as a push on game day, followed by when I swipe that push or I open that app, I'm presented with this sort of mobile first or this digital first guide or preview to the game. As we think further to that, when we start to tie into some of the segmentation pieces, we can really say, okay, well, maybe if you're going to the game versus if you're watching it out of market or at home, there are other things that are more relevant to you. So we can start to say, let's have a game day experience that's catered only to those who are going to the game. And through things like our Ticketmaster integration or other data sources, we actually know that you're going to the game. And so we're going to obviously put forward different marketing calls to action than we might do if you were not there. So, welcome to US Bank, here's a stadium map, here's, in-seat ordering information, all the things that are relevant, similar to the traditional print paper program, can now be easily delivered in the app. And again, this is done so in that drag and drop UI. We're now saying, we know you're going to the game, so we're going to give you that mobile experience that's reflective of your context as a fan. By clicking My Tickets, that can deep link or link through to the ticketing portion of the app. Stadium app, that can call that component of the app as well. And so we're really kind of being this top of funnel solution that's relevant because the fan is at the game, and we're crafting that mobile experience to reflect the current state of the fan. So when we bring all these things together, you can almost kind of look at it as a bit of a 1, 2, 3. The first being, context. What do we know about the ticketing data side? What do we know maybe about email engagement previously through the Eloqua integration? What do we know about user location? Followed by, knowing that's our segment, that's our audience, catering that message through segmentation to that fan. And then, of course, because they're going to the game, now they're going to get that welcome to the game guide. And we're really bringing that together to craft that contextual fan experience. This is less so important now, but certainly, when we saw the advent of mobile ticketing, there was an element of, we need to show fans this is how you access them prior to going to the game. So again, leveraging that understanding, we're going to say, make sure you have your tickets loaded on their phone. This is relevant to your experience and your access. And right now we're seeing a lot of this kind of application around COVID protocols. health and safety, distancing, what information is crucial to that fan experience in the event that you are starting to allow fans back into the venue. Through things like the ticketing, season ticket membership, or what we're doing on the Eloqua side, have you put your deposits on next year's season tickets? We're all very familiar of this kind of messaging and content delivered through the channel of email, but now we're sort of making this a similar reality in the app. And the benefit of the app is, of course, that it has that prime real estate on the phone. When I get that push message from my favorite team, it's going to show up on my lock screen. The open rates and engagement rates are still really high on those, especially when matched with good segmentation strategy. So again, we're turning that segmentation piece into a rich experience. But beyond that, there's a lot of other content opportunities. We all know as sports marketers, there's content opportunities that come up. Maybe a player hits a major milestone, the team achieves a milestone, times in the season that we can't always predict in advance, but we want to have the flexibility to activate and engage on. So we often see the product being used to create sort of rich editorial pieces, or information, not necessarily for a hard ROI driven use case, but to sort of be relevant and sort of be able to essentially compete with these large apps that have big developer teams, and being able to sort of adapt your club app to what's going on in the season. We've got polling as well. So we're seeing a lot of uses around predictions and predicting, and increasingly incorporating like a betting partner into that. So crafting an experience that's engaging the fan, make your predictions around how this game's going to turn out, as a means to engage, also as a means to activate for a betting partner. And lastly, to my point earlier, how a user responds, that's going to become a data point that we can use to remarket against. Did the user get the question right? We might follow up with pricing or an offer. How did the user respond? That might inform what we know about them as we look towards next week's or next quarter's strategy as it relates to the marketing automation side. So the response and the sort of the feedback that fans sort of present when they engage in these things becomes important. And again, going back to my comment earlier, as we think about sort of brand integration and the increasing need to digitize a lot of these sponsorships and partnerships, we can do things like quizzes and trivia, fan voting, player of the game, and incorporate our partners in a way that is going to engage fans, because whether we think it's really innovative or not, trivia and these types of things just tend to perform really well. The fan doesn't view this as an ad, or some sort of heavy-handed marketing messaging. They see it as a fan experience that also provides the opportunity for the partner to engage as well. Just showing sort of a couple more use cases, e-commerce engagement. So we launch a new jersey or new sort of kit. Maybe we do a scratch to reveal or present a sort of richer view of the new product, the new jersey that we might be launching, interactive, delivering that in the app. And then of course, who engaged, who spent more than a minute on the launch of our New Jersey experience, right? That can be used again to inform. Again, responses. So if a user says, hey, I'm interested in, I usually go to 1 to 3 games, that can feed into the data warehouse. That can also be a remarketing property. So we can say, anyone who's clicked 1 to 3, let's send them a multi-game offer the next day, perhaps. So I didn't want to, obviously spend a ton of time going in really deeply to product demos and things like that, but I wanted to show you some use cases and then also kind of shed some light on the latest with what we're doing on the sort of Eloqua side here. And this is really around, having push speak to what's happening with email, and not sort of viewing them as channels in isolation, but channels that can be synergistic or sort of understand how engagement is taking place in each respective ecosystem, both the app and an email. So, certainly happy to follow up with more information on this, but in short, this is really about sort of enabling a more enhanced and data-driven marketing strategy to be able to say, we know how you engage with an email. Perhaps it's a use case where we send an email campaign with campaign delivery rules, and the user didn't open that email. Well, maybe we follow up with a push in an automated way. Or maybe you've sent an email, but that email hasn't been engaged with, and there hasn't been sort of activated on. Maybe we do a nudge with push, and vice versa. The idea again being we want to look at these channels a little bit more holistically and have them be more synergistic than sort of channels that operate in isolation. So there's a lot of use cases that can emerge around here, but I think, again, consistent with this theme of the importance of smart segmentation, understanding the channel and having it not sort of operate on its own, this is really what we're very excited about in terms of what we launched this summer with this integration.
It's great, John. I'm just impressed with how slick the mobile experience is using your platform. There's a lot of really cool functionality that I can see a lot of teams taking advantage of, and based on your examples, a lot of teams already are taking advantage of it. So yeah, I love the mobile ticketing. I love the e-com engagement. During the game trivia. What great ways to increase fan engagement. Love it.